So this right here appears to be an absolutely huge story. There's a new macro analysis that has come out that is absolutely shocking and actually really positive for us progressives, because what it appears is that millennials are not becoming more conservative as they age. And so one of the things that happens is people tend to be more liberal when they're younger, but as they start to grow older and amass more wealth, property, and status, they end up becoming more conservative because it more conforms to the environments that they're in. You have lots of seniority at your job, you're making a lot of money, so you want to pay less money in taxes. You have a house, so you want lower property taxes, and you feel more of like an in, kind of like the us versus them mentality kind of thing. Whereas when you're younger, you're in college, you don't really have anything pretty much, and so they become more conservative as they age. This is bad, obviously, because it means that people vote conservative for Republicans, right? But it appears the millennials are bucking the trend. This, I guess, is like the first time we're seeing this, where they're actually not becoming more conservative as they age. So it says new data suggests that unlike previous generations, millennials are not becoming more conservative as they age, and people are ecstatic. By studying voting surveys from both the UK and the US, the Financial Times' John Murdoch found that millennials are actually defying historical patterns about how personal politics change. They are less right-wing than previous generations and have shown no indication of copying their parents and grandparents by shifting on the political spectrum. Murdoch suggests that it is not just the lack of house affordability making millennials more liberal, nor the after effects of Liz Truss's mini budget, which rocked the whole of the UK's economy. He explained that was a brief shock, whereas we're looking at a multi-year trend, and it can't explain the same pattern in the US. And so this is an analysis of both the UK and the US, not just the UK, but the UK and the US. So it's both. And both of them are showing that this is happening. It says instead, he pointed out that most millennials came of age in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, which could explain why they are more in favor of redistributing wealth from the rich to the poor. It says Brexit may also now come back to bite the successful conservative parties who champion leaving the EU, as well as many other culture wars, especially as millennial and Gen Z voters may outnumber their older peers at the next UK election. Also says it's worth noting that more than 50% of Brits regret Brexit now, according to a YouGov poll from November, the first time there's been more people against the drawn-out EU exit than for it. And so this is actually the chart that you can see, or the graph, I should say. You can see this. Here it says, what you can see is millennial voters in the UK and US are not following the typical pattern of growing more conservative as they age. And so it says UK conservative vote share by age within each generation relative to the national average. And so what you can see in this graph is people start to become more conservative as they age. So on the x-axis you have age, and then you have conservative vote on the y-axis. And so what you can see is that as it goes to the right on the x-axis for the Gen X, Boomer, and the silent generation, it's going up on the y-axis, meaning that they're going more in the direction of being conservative. However, you can see the millennial portion over here. I guess the millennial portion, this is actually insane, because what that is saying is the millennial portion is actually going down, not that they're actually staying stagnant. That's the UK, mind you. This is the UK portion. The UK portion is actually starting at a higher position and then going downwards as they age. So from 20, it's probably like 6 points below the national average, and then it goes all the way down to like 20% or 15% of the national average by the time they hit 40. So in the UK, the millennials are actually going more liberal as they grow, which is pretty crazy. And then in the UK here, you can in the US, it says Republican vote share by age within each generation relative to the national average. So you can just see, look at how crazy the silent generation, I think the silent generation is Gen X, if I'm not mistaken. This is another piece of information that I was actually really shocked by when I read this. But apparently, actually, the Gen Xers are more Gen X is up there. So who's the silent generation then? That's weird. These names for generations are kind of annoying, but I don't know what the silent generation is. I thought that was X. But what I had read is like the silent generation was actually more conservative voting than boomers were, which is like boomers are the ones antagonized, but I think the boomers created the silent generation. And so I had seen like a video clip from some like newscaster who was like during the Great Depression times, and I guess they like spoiled the crap out of boomers boomers. Boomers are really spoiled because they grew up in the boom, the post-war boom, and that's why it's called the baby boomers, right? In the good times of post-World War II, where it's like the U.S. is basically has a ton of new demand for jobs from all these countries that need war supplies, and so there was a baby boom from the good economy. Remember how great the economy was from like post-World War II up until like the stagflation era is when it started to kind of die back down, like in the 70s. That's why they're called the boomers, because they were the people who were, the kids made in the boom of babies, right? And so you can see the silent generation is just going absolutely insane. But you can see as they age, they go upwards. But millennials, it appears they're basically staying stagnant. They went up into the 30s, and then once they get the ones in the 40s are now basically pretty much the same, right? So this is a huge deal because everyone was talking about, this is the whole thing, right? Boomers are outnumbering us, et cetera, and they're the ones voting conservative. Boomers and the silent generation are the ones voting really conservative. Gen Xers appear to be around the national average. But the thing I was trying to say was in terms of like, hey, like just like as they start to become less of the population, the voting population, it doesn't necessarily mean that like progressives are going to take over, because the thing about what I was trying to say was young people, as they grow older, just like the previous generations did, they're going to get more conservative, and so it's going to end up being a wash. Or maybe it'll be more progressive, but not like AOC can get elected. And so if these trends continue, someone like an AOC can get elected, I would say, as soon as 2028, or a Bernie Sanders can get elected as soon as 2028, because people will be more left-leaning. And so I do think that in the 2030s, hopefully early 2030s, we will have Medicare for all. That would be really good, honestly, because with the way that the United States political system works, it's basically fully doomer, and it feels like there's no hope whatsoever. But so it's to the point where it's like, even if you could get Medicare for all in the 2030s, that would be a huge dub if we could do that, right? And get like AOC elected as president, and Bernie Sanders, obviously Bernie Sanders will be dead probably, or like too old by 2032 or whatever. He'll probably still be alive, but he won't be able to be president. But somebody like that, whoever it is, it doesn't really matter. AOC, Bernie Sanders, just someone with that ethos, And so what is the reason for this? It's because I think the article I had read said that it was like, I don't know if it says it in here, but the other article I had read basically said that, here it is. It says, although of course plenty pointed out that the millennial generation is the first in history to be poorer than their parents. So that's huge. So they're worse off. Millennials graduated into the 2008 economy, which was a complete crash, right? A global economic crisis. So they're much worse off. It's much harder to get homes and things like that. And so student loan debt is absolutely crushing. And I think a lot of them feel like, hey, like the baby boomers were totally spoiled by the amazing economy where you could live, your family could be raised off one income, and you could have basically $0 tuition for college. And so they're just so much worse off economically. And then also part of it is also social politics as well. So there's economics always dominates politics, right? But what we know also is, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that actually. It's not really true, right? Economics usually dominates for incumbency for presidents, but in terms of like voting and stuff, there are like certain issues like race and social issues are usually the most like difficult ones to shape people on. You can usually shape people on economic policies, but not on those. And so I think they don't like the social positions of like silent and boomer generation. And this isn't even about Gen Z. We don't know what Generation Z is going to be like, but I think Generation Z will be even more liberal than the millennials will be. And we saw that they were the only group that pulled for Democrats, plus 26 for the Democrats. And is likely because like the student loan debt thing that Joe Biden did that really helped the drive out for those young people coming out to vote. So it's going to be a really big deal in terms of like progressives are really going to be in a good situation for the future. This is really, really good news. And so I had even just sent out a tweet not long ago basically saying like, oh, what's the point of reaching out to young people if they're not going to vote? But it's actually really good because they are going to vote and they're going to outnumber old people. And I don't know how much of I haven't seen any talk about this or any kind of like analysis or anything, but did COVID have any impact on like the voting population? Because a lot of people died. Like, didn't 1 million people die or something crazy like that? So a ton of people died. Did that have any impact on the voting population? Because I mean, most of those people are going to be older people. So I don't know, or like Republicans too. So did that have an impact on the midterms? I don't know, but I'm curious to know. But what are the causes of this? millennials being poorer off than the other generations. A lot of the other generations shit on millennials. Everyone craps on millennials. Everybody, even liberals crap on millennials, like Joe Biden. So it's like they're kind of like, hey, like, fuck you. You know, that's basically what they're saying here, essentially. They're like, fuck you, we're going to vote liberal because you're being a prick. And so it's going to come back to haunt them. And then the social conservatism is going to hurt, but it's a lot of it is the economics. Like, millennials are like, damn, like, can't own a home. I got $40,000 in student loan debt. Healthcare is like through the roof. I can't afford healthcare. And it's just so hard to really get off the ground nowadays as compared to like the baby boom days. And so, you know, you had the GI Bill and the crazy amount of demand for like, war supplies and all this kind of stuff. So the U.S. was in a really good position, whereas for now it's just so much more difficult. And so you can see that is likely the reason why. But super, super fascinating analysis here, and really excited to see what comes out for Gen Z. And you can see millennials are the only ones bucking the trend, where they're actually not becoming more conservative as they age. This is going to be huge for future voting trends. Crazy. So someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC can definitely get elected, and I would say as early as 2028 probably, because that's 6 years. Think of, I don't know what age the silent generation is, but like boomers and them, like they're going to be continuing to die off too. And so the millennials and Gen Z are going to jump in, and they're super liberal. Gen Z is crazy liberal. You saw that even like conservatives are panicking now. Now they have to figure out. They're going to have to figure out, oh, do we sacrifice the culture war issues just to win voters? Because if they don't, if they stick to what they're doing, they're going to get hammered. They're going to get destroyed, because Gen Z is super progressive, especially socially. So it's going to be amazing in terms of macro voting trends. Super fascinating stuff. Love to see this kind of stuff. Really awesome to see. Just not even like the outcome specifically, but the outcome makes it even more interesting. But just macro voting trends are super fascinating in and of themselves.